3/4 of a century after the end of World War II, it's long overdue for the U.S. to return from Europe and get us out of NATO. I'm Christian Gomez, and you're watching JBS Straight Talk. This past weekend, on the eve of the 76th anniversary of the June 6, 1944 D-Day invasion of Normandy, the New York Times reported that the United States will cut its troop presence in Germany by more than 25%. The Times reported, quote, "The new cap, approved by President Trump and Defense Secretary Mark T. Esper, will limit American troops in Germany to 25,000, said a former senior official with knowledge of the decision. That would mean a reduction of 9,500 or more than 1/4 from current levels. As the Times pointed out in both their headline and throughout the article, Germany is a key NATO ally. NATO, which stands for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, is a permanent military alliance that was founded in 1949 under the guise of ensuring international peace and security. Ostensibly, it was sold to the American people as a way to contain the Soviet Union, one of the key founders of the United Nations and the world's leading communist state. However, according to a speech delivered by then U.S. Secretary of State Dean Acheson on March 18, 1949 about NATO, he said, quote, "It is designed to fit precisely into the framework of the United Nations and to assure practical measures for maintaining peace and security in harmony with the UN Charter." On the significance of the North Atlantic Treaty and NATO's primary purpose, Acheson said, quote, "The United States government and the governments with which we are associated in this treaty are convinced that it is an essential measure for strengthening the United Nations." In fact, the first sentence of the preamble of the North Atlantic Treaty reads, quote, "The parties to this treaty reaffirm their faith in the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations and their desire to live in peace with all peoples and all governments." NATO wasn't founded to contain communism and stop the menace of Marxism-Leninism. From the beginning, its role was to strengthen the UN by giving it something that it lacked up until that point, a military to enforce its edicts in the name of peace and security. Despite this, the Times article sensationalized how this plan, quote, "is a further blow to America's weakening European alliances and likely to be welcomed by President Vladimir V. Putin of Russia." Even today, globalists continue to use the threat of Russia to push for regional and one-world government. All the news fit to print, just not the facts. Do other NATO member countries such as Belgium, France, and Great Britain have bases and permanent troops deployed in the United States? On the West Coast or Hawaii to defend us from an attack or invasion from China? Of course not. Germany today boasts one of the most powerful and advanced militaries in continental Europe. The American people ought not to subsidize the national defense of countries, especially wealthy, developed nations like Germany and other European countries. In his farewell address, President George Washington wisely stated, quote, "It is our true policy to steer clear of permanent alliances with any portion of the foreign world. We recommend that you contact the White House and your members of Congress to congratulate President Trump for his plan to withdrawing 9,500 U.S. troops from Germany and to urge them to go even further by withdrawing from both NATO and the United Nations." Until next week, take care and God bless.